What's up, Wargamers? I know that it's been a little while since I've invited you in to have a seat and a snack and a beverage, but today is that day, so pull up a chair and let me talk at you for a minute. Hey, my friend. Today, my friends, we're going to be talking about Blaster, Volume 5, Dead by Lead. Now, this, I think, is the first edition. There may have been one before this where Blaster has shifted from being like one or two little small games and then supplemental content for other games to being pretty much just one game in the book. I don't love that change. I loved the kind of compilation feel that the earlier volumes had, but not going to hold that against them. You do what you have to do to be able to keep putting stuff out. So I'm okay with it. So this game is Dead by Lead by Alex C. Van Allen. It is a shoot 'em up Western good time. So let's dig in and see what's going on here. So Dead by Lead is a gritty Western skirmish game set in the fictional town of Bloodstone, which is somewhere deep into the Arizona territory. And one thing that I think is very cool, and I'm sure there will be lots of things through the course of this conversation that I think are cool, but the author, Alex Van Allen, his grandfather, Carl Genovese, did all the illustrations for the book. And I think that's really, really cool to be able to bring family into it in that way. So, points there. I like that a lot. And the illustrations are genuinely beautiful. I don't know if these are digitals or if he's actually gone and created physical paintings of these that were then photographed, but it's beautiful work. So off gate, it opens up with the things that you need to play. I like it when that's the first thing in the book. And for this, you need obviously 6 to 12 Western miniatures, 1d12 and several d6s, a deck of playing cards, a 3x3 board, your terrain, tokens, and the roster. So a pretty short list. Now, Western, if you're not already into the Western genre, it can always be intimidating to acquire terrain to fit a new genre of game. However, bear in mind that you can just use rocks and bushes and it can just be wilderness terrain, which is usually a lot cheaper, and if you're building it yourself, it's usually a lot easier to build. So bear that in mind if you think the game is cool but you don't have Western style buildings and things of that sort. Also worth mentioning, in the deck of cards you do need to remove the jokers. We then come into the section for starting your game, putting all that together. That's something, obviously, we'll talk about that in a different video once we're maybe a little bit closer to ready to play the game. But it does include several professions, different animals that you can add, upgrades, flaws, all that good stuff, right into weapons, which is a beautiful chart. First off, beautiful illustration and a wonderful chart. I love it when all the weapons are laid out like this, where it gives you everything. It gives you the damage, the range, the ammo, the features, and the cost. And I know that that's a pretty common thing, but still not everybody does it this way. And I think they should. Of course, that is just my opinion, and like certain features of the anatomy, everybody's got one. After that, we start to get into the tender bits of the game. Starting with your table setup and deployment, which is if you're playing a scenario, then the scenario, reference to the scenario, it will give you advice and lead you to what your table should be. Otherwise, if you're just playing a one-off, just shoot 'em up game with your buddy, just set it up however you please. For deployment, it's a 3-inch deployment, and it's deploy your whole team settings. I don't love deployments that are I deploy everything and then you deploy everything. I think it's much more enjoyable when it's a back and forth deployment, or maybe even a random deployment, because then you're getting information on both sides. Like, both players are being able to get information and deploy or counter deploy in a way that they feel strategically sound about, as opposed to just I set everything up and then you can counter deploy however you please. It's a small thing. It's not something against the game. Again, that is a personal preference of mine. But you roll off, highest roller does it first, deploys everything, and then the other player does. When you go into initiative for the rounds, you need that D12, so you give that a roll. Highest roll takes initiative, and has priority. That player acts first in this game. It is not a may choose or decides. Whoever wins that role is the person activating first. So I like that. I like it when initiative is potentially different every turn. Once initiative has been determined, we move to activations. In this game, each player will activate 2 models at a time. I like that. I don't know why, but it seems fun because you're getting a little bit more action on your turn, and your opponent on the other side of the table, you're getting a little bit more information on the turn. I can potentially see that coming into an affecting if one gang has many more members than the other. I could see that potentially being very advantageous, but again, until I get it on the table, I don't know that for certain. Again, these are just me talking to you about my impressions from the book and how the things work. Each character gets 2 AP. You can perform, you can move, you can shoot, you can mount or dismount, you can brawl, you can aim carefully, and you can reload. You cannot do anything twice except movement. Now, that being said, you can do those things in any order. There is no you have to move and then take an action. You can move then shoot, shoot then move, shoot then reload, whatever order you think is best for the situation. I do like that a lot because sometimes I don't want to be stuck. I want to shoot, but I want to get to a better spot before I shoot, and I like it when games let me do that. When you go to perform those activations, you will be called upon to make rolls and tests. Those are always done on the D12. Add your pertinent stat, plus or minus modifiers, pretty standard fare there, nothing crazy. Then you need to meet or beat the target number. That's always a point worth taking note of, because if you play a lot of games, it's real easy to forget. You know, is it meet or beat? Is it beat? Meet or beat in this game. A 12 is always a success, regardless of modifiers. A 1 is always a failure, regardless of modifiers or any other external things. Models have universal movement in this game, which I love. I love being able to look at a model and immediately know how far it can move and therefore know its threat range. People are 6, horses are 12. You can move in any direction you want, doesn't have to be a straight line, and facing does not matter. Climbing, swimming in shallow water, and difficult terrain are all pretty much the same, 2 inches for every 1 inch of movement. If you're trying to swim in deep water, it's 3 inches of movement for every 1 inch you actually move. If you are injured or had your movement reduced below 3, swimming is impossible. You can't do it. Fighting in the water will give you a -1 penalty to the fight. A model, if they're beat up or if they have an objective or something that you need to secure, can leave the board anytime it wants via any table edge, as long as it has the movement to get across that line. And it doesn't specify this, but in most games, and this is how I usually play it regardless, as long as part of the base can cross the edge of the table, we're going to say that model made it off. It does have a forcing a brawl mechanic similar to what you would see in Joseph McCullough's games, where if you go within an inch of a model, an enemy, that enemy can choose to force the combat, and then you stop all movement, put them in base to base, and duke it out. I like that. You can jump as far as you can move before the jump. So if you want to jump 1 inch, you got to move an inch before. Jump 2 inches, etc., etc. If your movement is reduced below whatever, you're not going to be able to make the jump. You may jump 1 inch up from a standing position. If you fail your jump, or if you fall for some reason, every inch you fall in excess of 3 results in 1 point of damage that is applied to the legs. Yes, each part of your body has different damage that will affect how that character moves and reacts. I haven't gotten to that part of the conversation yet, obviously. I'm bringing it up now. We'll talk about it more when we get to it in the book, but I think that's super cool. It reminds me a lot of Gundam games. When it comes to shooting, obviously you have to have range, you have to have line of sight. You cannot ever shoot if you are in combat, and you can never shoot through another model, friend, or ally. I like when that's a thing in skirmish games. I don't like that when it's a thing in army games. But in a skirmish game where you're just dealing with small groups of individual models, I don't think you should be able to move through or shoot through any model, because they should all occupy space on the table and be relevant to how people move and position. My opinion. Shooting is also where we get into that deck of cards that we need. That is the aim deck, and this is a pretty cool mechanic. I've played several games that use decks of cards. I don't know that I've played one where it used it in this manner. The deck of cards there is there to set the difficulty of your opponent's shot. So when one of your guys gets shot at, you determine the amount of cover they have, and then draw the corresponding number of cards. Face cards, regardless of suit, are always worth 10. So if you have no cover, you draw a card, and whatever that is, that's the target number of the shot. It could be anywhere from a 2 up to a 10. The target has standard cover, so I think like a wall, bushes, a patch of cactus, stuff like that. You draw 2 cards and you can keep the highest. If you're in heavy cover, so behind the corner of a building, something like that, player gets to draw 3, take the highest, discard the others. And then whatever they keep, that's the target number for your shot. The cards are always immediately shuffled back into the deck after one of these actions. I'm going to have to play that to see how I feel like that. It feels like that could potentially turn into a lot of time spent shuffling the deck, but it keeps the stats relatively even as opposed to having a discard pile and then shuffling back up when that's empty, which is good. Reshuffling every time is also good for the next part, which discusses duplicates and face cards. So if you draw doubles, so like if I draw 2 8s, I don't have to discard any of them. I can keep both and combine the total for a total difficulty number of 16. So that's pretty strong. Face cards can be combined together, but only if they're matching faces. Even though they're all worth 10, like you can put 2 kings together, but you can't put a queen and a king together. Aces have the target difficulty of 10. However, if you draw 1, they give you a special reaction move. So if the model that's being shot at has not activated yet, you can choose to return fire, which means that after the shot is resolved, after the attacking model shot is resolved, you can then check line of sight and make a shooting attack in return. And then you end its turn and continue play as normal. I think that's awesome. I think it's an awesome thing for when you draw an ace to get that rush. I also think that it's really, really good for influencing target priorities in the game. Because if I have a target in range that hasn't activated opposed to one that has activated, being able to choose to shoot at the one that can't fire back if you draw the ace is a good option. And I like that that kind of gives me a layer to help determine my target priorities. Weapon ranges are broken into brackets. Short range, medium range, long range, very long range. Ranging from 0.1 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18, and 18 to 24. Short range weapon, or any of the weapons that can fire actually up to 6 inches past their max range at a -1 penalty. When it comes to determining your shooting things, there are modifiers for outside of optimal, which I just mentioned is -1. No cover doesn't have an impact. Standard cover is -1. Heavy cover is -2. A running shot, so if you move before you shoot, is a -1. That again reminds me of McCullough's games. Intervening terrain is -1. Does it stack? No. Aimed shot is +1. And dual wielding is -1. So a good list of modifiers, but not too many, and most of them are -1 or +1. None of them are bonkers modifiers, especially when you're consider that you're rolling on a D12, not a D6. Also, just want to throw this out there, I love D12s. They're probably one of my favorite dice to roll. So I'm always excited when I get to use them. When it comes to ammunition and reloading, there are things here that I like and things that just aren't my favorite in games. You are considered to have as much ammo as you need. So you don't have to worry about buying ammo, I don't think. But you do have to keep track of your shots because your weapon will have a reload amount. So that's just a little token to keep up with that. That's pretty easy. At least I don't have to like count all of my shots to consider like completely running out of ammo. That is a feature in a war game that I just do not care for. Now, while you cannot shoot if you are in combat, you can shoot at an enemy that is in a brawl if you are outside of it. However, you do run the risk of hitting your teammate, which is pretty much a 50-50 coin flip. I like mechanics like that because it provides some risk versus reward in your decision making about whether or not it's wise to shoot at the guy who's fist fighting your buddy. Now, once you get through all of that and you have actually hit, your damage is applied to one of 6 hitboxes. Head, torso, left arm, left leg, right leg. Each place that you are hit has different negative effects on how well your character can perform. I think this is both very, very cool and potentially somewhat difficult to keep up with. I don't remember the roster sheet, but let me just show you. Right here, beside the checkboxes, I'm assuming this is probably what it looks like on the page. It shows you the debuffs beside each of the hitboxes. If you get hit in the head, you're dead, outright. In the torso is -1 to all rolls. In the arms is -1 to brawl, but also -1 to your iron skill if you get hit in the arm you're holding your pistol with, or if you're using a two-handed weapon. And those are cumulative. Getting hit in the legs reduces your movement. And per wound, is cumulative on the arms. So as you get hit, it's actually going to affect how the model performs. And I think that's pretty cool. I like that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Now, if you favor a more hands-on approach to removing the life force from your enemies, we talk about brawling. So if you're in base to base, you both roll a d12, apply your modifiers. Whoever wins deals a damage. If you're unarmed, if you have a weapon, then you would deal whatever the damage of the weapon is. This continues on until either the winner chooses to disengage by pushing the opponent back an inch, or until one of them is dead. You just continue to beat the snot out of each other, which means that you could potentially tar pit a model in this game. I don't hate tar pitting. I think it's a valid strategy sometimes. You do, however, if you have multiple friends all ganging up on one dude, you get a cumulative +2 to your brawl for every other friendly. Again, that feels very, very, very McCullough. So maybe that's a big influence for this author, which I'm here for. I love it when I can kind of almost see the etymology. That's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying? Like, I can see and pick out where I think authors get their influences from. And that's part of the fun of reading a new rule set and seeing how people will kind of take and adapt and then build on or enhance or completely rework it. I just love it. That's one of my favorite parts about reading a new rule book. Your overall health of a model is referred to as their grit. Once your wounds exceed your grit, you're out of there. Lay them down, the dust will claim you and bleach your bones. In addition to grit, a cowpoke also needs a fair amount of luck. So each model has a set amount of luck at the start of the game. And when you are hit, or wounded, you can choose to expend as many luck as you want up to the current amount that you have to try to avoid that damage, to have it just go wide or ricochet off of your marshal's badge. That is done by select the amount you want to spend, roll a d12, and add the number of luck that you spent as a modifier to that dice roll. If you meet or exceed the attacker's roll, that damage is negated and you burned up one of your 9 lives. I think that's a really cool mechanic. I think that's going to be fun and create some very frustrating moments as the attacker where you're like, man, I finally got this in, and then they nail the luck roll. Those are some of the great moments in gaming is when it gets just snatched away from you right at the last second. True in video games, true in war games. The luck can be used for a shooting damage or for brawling damage. We then have another one of these beautiful illustrations, and we go into chapter 4, which is all about campaigns. Campaigns are really, I think, the best way to play skirmish games. A one-off game here and there, maybe if you're learning or if you're just meeting up with some rando sort, but if you're playing a game with like a skirmish game, like campaign is where it really shines. Because then you are an active participant in a story that you don't know the ending of. Oh, I love that. I love campaigns. I love it when campaigns are included as part of skirmish games. This section jumps straight into your post game. So you have your injury rolls, to where obviously if you got removed, you have to make a roll. It's a d6, depending on which hitbox wounds took the gunslinger over the threshold. So that is something that needs to be noted when a model is removed, because depending on where that was, could create different results. If you're hit in the head is one chart, if you're hit in the torso is one, the arms, the legs. It affects what the injury could potentially be. XP in the game is referred to as notoriety. You get 1 notoriety every time one of your models kills an enemy model or removes it from play, and you get a notoriety for surviving the game. You unlock new traits every 5 notoriety. If you choose, instead of taking a trait from, so if you just unlocked it 10, you could choose to take one of the bonuses or the traits from the notoriety 5 chart instead of the 10. So you can go back and upgrade on that, but you can never upgrade a stat above 6. That is the maximum allowed cap for any stat. Now, of course, one does need some amount of greenbacks to survive the Wild West. You got to buy food, water, ammunition, and upgrades. So the winner rolls a d12 and doubles it. That's the number of dollars they get. The loser rolls a d12, and that's the number of dollars they get. The money that you earn can be used to hire new gang members, buy additional equipment, buy new guns. You can't sell members of your gang, but you can kick them out and hire new ones. However, your animals, horses, dogs, things like that, can be sold as equipment. All of those things are sold at half cost, rounded up. Any money that is not assigned to a character goes into the gang's cash. You can also use it to buy other equipment, which is a pretty cool list of things that all give you different bonuses. So you got bandoliers, dynamite, an embroidered leather saddle, super fancy, a finely made hat, a gold pocket watch, medicine, lucky rabbit foots, a silver laced harmonica, snakeskin boots, a lasso, spurs, and a warm poncho. And then each of those has a different thing that it gives you for a bonus. They range from $4 up to $25. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool stuff. I always like it when there's some fancy things that you can buy beyond just the regular equipment. It's also important for the members of the gang to keep busy in between their different various gunfights and rabble-rousing. So each member of the gang gets to roll a d6 and then correspond the resulting chart 1 through 6, and then roll another d6 on that chart to see what they do to keep busy. So that's 6 times 6, that's 36 potential different things that your gang members could be doing. I love stuff like this. I love it when there's that aspect, because again, that helps build onto the story that you and your friend or friends are telling on the tabletop. It just tweaks the immersion buttons, and it's a pretty simple, straightforward system. There's not a lot to keep up with beyond getting your reward, and everybody gets to do a thing, so you get to roll more dice. And at the end of the day, y'all, that's what we're here for. Just big, gaping handfuls of dice. Chapter 5 are the scenarios, of which there are 6. And then we come to the roster sheets, which look like this. I will probably print this on cardstock and then print them out so that I can have cards front and back. And then we've got an ad for Hobgoblin, which is another cool game that I have a beta for. And then we have a pretty extensive quick reference on the last pages of the book. And if any of you have ever watched any of my videos, you know how I feel about quick references. I think that it is an absolute aberration for a game to not include a quick reference. I don't, give me it. It's simple. You've already got all that stuff typed out. Just reformat it onto the last couple pages of the book, and let me have a way to quickly find the information that I need. And that, my friends, is Blaster Volume 5. Now, I am behind the curve on getting to talking about this video. I'd loaned it to my buddy Bill so he could look at it, and then just between both of our brains getting wonky sometimes, it just took me a while to remember to ask him to bring it back, and then took him a little while to remember to bring it back, which is all good. Got nothing but love for that guy. Anyways, I don't know that you can still get this. I don't know how Blaster is doing their books since they've moved away from the kind of anthology compilation model. I know that those books can't really be gotten anymore, but I think that since they've moved to this way, you can they probably keep a few of them in stock. I probably should have looked that up ahead of time. You know what? I'm gonna go look it up right now.